it on the computer.
There. Okay.
All right, are we recording now? This is
Now
good.
we are recording.
I am going to pick this screen. We're going to record from here. I'm going to find my little bouncing light so we can read. So the story is called, it's at the beginning of chapter 12, which means it's reviewing up through 12. And the story is called Yitziat Mitzrayim, which means Exodus from Egypt. The extra word that we need to know for the sake of telling the story is lo, which means no. Not to be confused, by the way, well, no, we haven't gotten there yet. You can't be confused. It's the only word you know. By the end of today, maybe you'll know another word, but that might confuse you. But right now, don't be confused. All you know is this one. So it says, we're going to take this phrase by phrase. B'Mitzrayim Rasha HaMelech. What is that?
In Egypt,
Rasha HaMelech.
Evil is the king.
Evil,
right, evil is the king, or the king is evil. And you're going to find that they're trying to be formal. Biblical Hebrew sometimes will often swap the verb with the subject. And so even in this case, they're taking the predicate and turning it into swapping it. So it says, Ushmo Paro.
And his name.
And his
name
is Paro, from Shem. And his name is Paro. And then it says, I'm going to have to make this a teeny bit smaller so we can see the whole thing. That's my teeny bit. Sorry about that. Kol hayom osehu ra la'anshe Yisrael. Kol hayom
day
osehu ra.
He did bad.
Yeah, except we're in present tense. It's an
He
ing.
does bad.
He's doing bad.
He's doing bad.
La'anshe Yisrael.
To
the people Israel.
Mm-hmm. Or the men of Israel. From Ish, it's the plural of Ish. And Anshe is the people of. It could be the men of. The women he was okay with. No, just kidding. But I mean, the point is, as I like to say, this isn't really biblical Hebrew. It's trying to tell a biblical story. It's but biblical Hebrew is gloriously ambiguous. So it could be people, it could be men. Moshe hu ish gadol ben bnei Yisrael. Moshe hu ish gadol.
A great man.
He's a great man. He's a big deal. Ben bnei Yisrael.
Among the people Israel.
Right.
Son of the children of Israel.
Among the children of Israel. Yep, the children of Israel. Yom echad bnei Yisrael omrim leMoshe. Yom echad.
One day.
One day.
One day.
Bnei Yisrael, children of Israel.
Children of Israel.
Omrim leMoshe. One
Said
day
to Moses.
they're saying to Moshe.
To Moses.
Paro oseh ra la'amenu.
Pharaoh is
doing
to all of us.
So Am's people or nation.
To our people.
Our nation, to our people.
Our nation.
So it's skipping all the parts about how we know about Moses being part of the nation and all that, but that's okay. We'll just pretend this makes sense here. Omer Moshe la'amo.
Moses says saying to people, to his people, his nation.
He's owning up to the fact that it's his people, his nation. Holech ani el paro lema'an b'nei Yisrael. Holech ani.
I'm going to the Pharaoh. And
Lema'an b'nei Yisrael. This is one of last lesson's vocabulary words. It's a good one. I like this one. For the sake of the children of Israel. I told you it's a really good one. I don't know how often for the sake of shows up in your daily conversation, but I love it when it does. It's really cool. Holech Moshe lifnei Paro ve'omer. Moses he's going lifnei Paro, before in front of Pharaoh, ve'omer, and is saying, Ami Yisrael holech mi Mitzrayim el Eretz Yisrael. Ami,
my people
Israel, holech mi Mitzrayim,
are going from Egypt
El Eretz Yisrael,
to the land of Israel.
So I want to point out that we have two Israels in this sentence, and that's a little bit why it's significant and important to be able to say, Ami, my people Israel, is going to Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel. That's important. There are actually three things that that we use Israel for, at least in the Tanakh, in the Bible. And one is when we're talking about Am Yisrael or Bnei Yisrael, that's the same thing. That's the people of Israel, they're children of Israel. Or Eretz Yisrael, which is the land of Israel, or the guy named Yisrael, formerly known as Yaakov. So those three things, and we've had two of them in this sentence here. And Paro Omer Lo.
The Pharaoh said
Pharaoh
no.
said no.
Yep, Pharaoh says no. Moshe Omer Le Pharaoh. And I was pointing out, so it says Moses is saying Le Pharaoh. You notice that his name is Paro, but now we're calling him Pharaoh because it's coming after the preposition le, and le has a moving shva. After a moving shva, there's never a dagesh. We're not calling him the Pharaoh here. We're calling him Pharaoh. That's his name, kind of. We're not calling it as a title. So it's not like La Paro, although you could call him the Pharaoh. I mean, it's not hurting my feelings to translate it like that because it's how we refer to pharaohs in English sometimes. But I'm just pointing out that that's why the dagesh is out here, but it's the same guy. And if I were translating him, I mean, we're bad by calling him Pharaoh instead of Paro. His name should be Paro. Why are we calling him Pharaoh? I don't know. But anyway.
So Pharaoh is not a generic term for ruler like in Egypt.
See that?
I think part of what happened, is that it kind of defaulted that way. I mean, I'm going to point out that Jesus isn't his name, it's his title. He had a different name. They called him Yeshua, which means Redeemer or Savior. His given name was Emmanuel, right? And then he was given the title of Savior or Redeemer, and that's Yeshua. It's a title. It's not a name. It becomes his name. Like you can call me Rabbi, I'll answer to that. And it kind of becomes my name.
So we're thinking Paro was an actual given name, like, or a name, like Jana or Aaron.
So it's hard to say because they don't mention many pharaohs, and it's hard to say which comes first, the chicken or the egg here. He is sometimes referred to as Melech Mitzrayim, the king of Egypt, and he's sometimes referred to Paro. So it's hard to say whether that was his name or whether that became a name or a title.
Interesting.
And even with that, to some extent, for example, other titles like that become like sir, becomes part of your name, and you're always supposed to refer to someone as sir something, and it's a title that becomes part of your name. So it's a little bit hard to figure out which came first, even though there might have been other pharaohs afterwards. Is that just what they're called once they take on that role? Or was it his name and he was Pharaoh the first, also known as Ramses or whatever? I don't know. I'm not sure exactly which came first there. I just can tell you that it gets confusing that it refers to him as both those things of Melech Mitzrayim and Paro Mitzrayim, because maybe it's a distinction and maybe it isn't. When I talk to him, I'll let you know. So many questions that I have. So he says, Moshe Omer leFaro. Moses says to Pharaoh, Ata ose ra la'ami.
You're
doing ra
doing
bad things to my people.
To my
people. La'ami, to my people. Paro Omer.
Pharaoh says,
is
saying, Anshe Yisrael hem ohave Paro. The people of Israel, they are lovers of Pharaoh. What are you talking about? I do bad things to them. They're lovers of Pharaoh. Moshe Omer, lo, oh no. Ata ose ra la'ami. You are doing bad la'ami, to my people. V'hayom holchim anu mi Mitzrayim. And today we are going from Egypt. That's the anu here. It could have been an achnu, but they chose anu. Holchim Moshe u'vnei Yisrael. Moses and the children of Israel are going. Me'eretz Mitzrayim, from the land of Egypt. El Eretz Yisrael, to the land of Israel. Zoti Yitziat Mitzrayim. This here, Zoti, this is the Exodus of Egypt. Ta-da! It's good.
Ta-da.
That was good. We got through that story, a very fake story, but it's close. So we were able to read through that. I'm going to introduce the vocabulary, and then I'm going to show you my cool cards, even though we only had a few minutes, just because I started working on them and I wanted to brag about it.
Okay.
So bocher is the verb, and you're seeing it here in the present or the gerund, the participle form, which is they're translating it as choosing. Since all of you are also in a biblical Hebrew class and you've heard some of these things before, you'll know that the past tense is bachar. You're going to hear it in things like in the Torah blessing, Asher bachar, or no, that's the Haftarah, bin v'im tovim, or Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. So bachar bocher, and there's usually after bocher, for whatever reason, the idiom in Hebrew is that it's, so you say, I choose chocolate, but in Hebrew, I have to say, I choose chocolate. I have to have a afterwards. That's the idiom. I'm choosing in chocolate. Yeah. And then we have this trusting, and the word trusting in the gerund form for the masculine singular is boteach. We don't often get to see what's called the furtive patach, which means a sneaky patach. And that's what happens when you come to the end of a word. If there's a chet at the end of the word and a patach under it, then you say the patach first. It's not botecha, it's boteach. Boteach. And there is a number of places where it's batach and boteach. And you'll hear, it's a word I'll try to point them out as we get to prayers and things. And then we have Laila, which is night, and the plural is leilot. So did we just magically turn these things into feminine words because they end in a in the singular and ot in the plural? Nope, they're still masculine. It is one of the most common words, and it is one that is masculine. It is kind of breaking the rules because words that end in kamatse are supposed to be feminine. But my favorite way of remembering that this is masculine is that you grow up and you say Laila Tov. You say Laila Tov to your kids. Say Laila Tov, good night. You say Boker Tov, good morning. You say Laila Tov, good night. And that adjective will not lie. You're not going to hear Laila Tova. It's not going to feel right in your head, because if you've ever heard anybody say good night in Hebrew, it's always Laila Tov. So that's how we know. And the plural, no matter what it looks like, is still, this just looks like plural, but it's still masculine. Why it looks like that, I don't know. Malach, and the plural is malachim, is angel or messenger. In the Torah, angels are macho guys carrying these really big swords. Think about the ones, for example, the one that's blocking Bilam in his path to go curse the Jews, and this angel stops him and the donkey stops and sees him. I think these really strong guys. I don't know that there's an angel in the Torah that looks like a woman on top of a tree with big long wings. I don't think that there's an angel that looks like that. I'm not saying that all angels have to be guys, but it is a masculine singular word after all. No, just kidding. I'm going to point out a couple of other things too. So you may know the song, Shalom Aleichem Malache Hasharet, Malache Elyon. That is Shalom Aleichem, peace upon you. Malache Hasharet. The first verse says Sharet. The rest of them say Shalom. Sharet means like the serving angels, the ones that serve us, that are useful. And then it says Malachi Elyon, means the angels of on high, from al, on, upon, and just keep going up. And then in the second line, it says Mi Melech Malachi HaMalachim. That's not Malache, that's Melech, king. So it says in the first verse, in the first part of the verse, it says, peace upon you, angels, angels of the highest, useful angels, angels of the highest. And then it says, who is the king of the kings of the kings? Mi melech hamlache hamlachim. Melech, mi melech malache hamlach. Who is king of the kings of the kings? And that's without the aleph in the middle of it, because it's about melech, it's about king. And that's pretty cool. The other thing that's cool about this is the messengers or the servants or the ones who serve God, and you use the word malach. When we talk about servants or slaves or people who do the things, or the word for worship is oved, avodah. And I think it's really cool because the word for, in the Decalogue where it says, no manner of work shall you do on Shabbat, the word is malacha. You just add a kamatz hey to the end of this, malacha. So it has to do with the I don't know, it's just interesting for the malach. And here we have the other word, molech, which is taking the root, the 3 root letters of mem lamed chaf, which means king or ruler, and turning it into a verb. And it is not the same thing as this, because this has another letter in here. It's got an aleph in the middle of it. And then we have shomer, which is guarding or keeping. So you could say things like someone is shomer Shabbat. That means they are a keeper of Shabbat. You'll find that these are also one who does. They're telling you about the boteach thing. The 4 forms of the participles for these words are bocher, bocheret, bocharim. So this is not surprising you. That's because it's a chet. We can't have a moving shva under a chet. Bocharot, you can't have a moving shva under a chet. Then you have boteach, and anytime you have a chet under the last root letter, it's going to say, instead of like a regular word is shomer, shomeret, shomrim, shomrot, that's regular. You're going to see moving shva here. You're going to see moving shva here. Here we have the composite. You're going to see et here, and instead we have a. And we have the a here, and that's regular for when the 3rd root letter is a chet. It's going to go to an each form, and then it's going to go to an achat form, as opposed to this regular. So botech, botachat, botchim, botchot, molech, molechet, molechim, molchot. The only thing that's unusual about this one is that because the last letter is a final chaf, a final chaf is an unusual letter that when it's at the end of the word, it's either going to have a moving shva in it or sometimes a kamatz in it. So in this case, it's acting like it doesn't have anything in it by being molech, like shomer, but it has to have the moving shva in it. The rest of it stays regular. Those are the 4 words we have here. And the rest of it is going to be showing us that we can take the same kind of things that we had for possessive endings, like when we said ami, my people. We're going to take similar kinds of endings, and we're not identical, but similar, and we're going to plop them at the ends of prepositions too. And this is where my delightful thing comes in, although you've got that in that page, but look what I made for you here. And I'm working on making it so that it will randomize for you. I can put the words on there. Li is to me. Lacha is like la plus ata, we'll call it. Okay, it's not exactly like that. It's lacha is to you, masculine singular. Lach is to you, feminine singular. It's kind of like la plus at. And I say kind of like because officially ata is a subject pronoun. It's not what happens when you're saying like, if I say to me is not a subject pronoun. The subject pronoun would be I. It's a totally different word. So with you, it's the same word all around, but in the Hebrew, it's not. It's lacha. It's a not ata. It's a cha. This word, though, I wanted to show you. So we have a lacha is about to you, masculine singular. You will often see lach at the end of a sentence or the end of a phrase in biblical Hebrew, and sometimes therefore also in prayer book Hebrew, that it really is supposed to mean lacha. But because you got to the end of a sentence and you don't, lacha feels like you're still going, ta-da, lacha, it ends with a lach. And that comes up a lot in biblical Hebrew. And it's, as I say, sometimes it'll come up in prayer book Hebrew because of that. So we have, this is the word that I wanted to get to.
No.
Yes, and it's not the same low as the one we just saw. The one we just saw, that low, looks like this.
This is
I got to pick a better color. The one that we saw that means no has a lamed. Try to make it a kind of less, not so squiggly. It has just one dot and it has an aleph. So it's not the same word. So this lo is the la prefix. Essentially, it's the la prefix, right? plus who.
His.
It's plus who, and it becomes lo, like amo would have been his people. So lo is to him. So the o ending has to do with who, as in the predicate in the end of this thing. But this is a totally different word. It's got the aleph on it. So please see that and know that it's, I mean, you can have a sentence where you say lo, lo, and use just this word twice, lo, lo, or you could say lo, lo, not to him. You could do it that way. And if you are from South Africa, you will make fun of me for saying lo, because it sounds like I'm saying it like L-O-W, but they would say lo, because it's just lamed o, it's just lo, not low. So low, but we do that. I don't know why we do that. That's us being all whatever. And then we have la, which has the mapik and the hey, like we saw in the possessive endings, which means that it's not just a feminine, it has to do with her, la. And then lanu has to do with anachnu, to us.
Yes.
Lachem is to atem, lachem is masculine or mixed, to y'all. Lachen is to y'all, but feminine, it ends in nun. And then lahem is to them, masculine or mixed, and lahen is to them, feminine or, lahen. So those are easy to figure out. And it's going to be the same exact thing with a ba prefix. Some of the other ones we're going to add other things to, and that's what we'll talk about. And I guess we can continue next time and really do the, I don't know, introduce. Let's see, come on. Go this way. Yes.
Do chapter 12 again next time?
That would be nice, wouldn't it, for a change? Instead of continuing forward. I know. I just thought this is stuff you kind of sort of already know, so it's not so bad.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't so bad to continue plodding. And you see examples of it. And then it tells you, so hu noten lanu bracha, he gives to us a blessing. It's funny when you do that in English, you say he gives us a blessing. I mean, he's not giving us, he's giving it to us.
To
But
us.
in some cases in English, it's appropriate to take out the preposition, but you're not going to take it out in Hebrew. You're going to need it there all the time. He osa lahem chesed, she does for them acts of loving kindness. Ahavti lecha gedola, ahavati, my love for you is big. It's a big love. And then the same suffixes that you have for la, you put on the ba to get in me or with me, or all of these, exact same, doesn't change. Although I've never seen lam, but for bahem, it could be bam. And ahavabo, there's no love in him. Hu boteach bi, he trusts in me. Or as I pointed out, bachar, the bocher verb is always going to have a ba afterwards. So then we have other prepositions we've learned, like al. Al is going to have recognizable endings, but they're not going to be identical. So it's going to be alai instead of ali. It's going to be alecha. And then you're going to see a yud in here for a lot of this. Alecha, alayech, alav, that's a weird thing, the av ending. And it looks like there's a yud in there that's kind of silent with the kamatz yud vav. You pronounce it av, alav. Aleha, this is weird. Instead of a mapik and a hey, you do a ha ending. Alenu, that's not surprising now that we've added the yud. Alechem, alechen, and alehem and alehen. And we just did that. Shalom aleichem, peace be upon you all. Or aleinu l'shabeach, it's upon us to be praising. So we've got a bunch of words like that. And then they show you other prepositions with endings, and they're going to give you things. So it's like ka is actually a bigger word. It's more like kamo, like or as. So you're going to add kamoni and kamocha, and it's a more robust word. Like mi chamocha is in there. and it's not always spelled like that. Lifnei is going to have lifanecha, lifanai. El is going to be elecha, to you. Ben is going to have these endings, beni, bencha. That one's going to be closer to regular. But mi chamocha, who is like you. Eretz Mitzrayim lifanecha, the land of Egypt is before you. Hu holech lifanecha, he goes before you. Hu noten elecha bracha, he gives to you a blessing. So I hope it's not confusing to recognize these things, but in the prayer book, you're going to see a lot of them. And I pointed out that bocher is always going to have a ba afterwards. And boteach is always going to have a ba, because that's the idiom that you need with trusting. You trust in something. Anu botchim bachem. We are trusting in you. We trust you. Hamelech boteach be, the king trusts me. I like to think of it as kind of like he puts his trust in me, but it's not a stretch for that. Sometimes, so we've already talked about prepositions having to translate them in funky ways. Every language does different things. Sorry?
I have to go.
Okay, bye. Bye.
Bye.
We're almost done anyway. You're good. I will take you away. I have to not report you to Zoom. Bye. Okay. And so translating, like you say, you sit at the table, and at kind of doesn't mean anything. You sit near the, you sit, you are, well, one of my favorite ones that we talk about for ba is, what does it mean to be on Monday? I'm going to do that on Monday. What does that mean, that you're on Monday? It kind of doesn't make sense. And in Hebrew, we say we're in Monday, and that makes a pinch more sense when you think about it, but kind of not. So here they're trying to show you the suffixes, and some of them are possessive suffixes, and some of them are pronominal prepositional suffixes, which means that you're adding a noun to the end of a preposition instead. And translating, and I think you got this. Yikes. They want you to write. I never make you write. So if you got the email about the Quizlet, it wasn't me.
Yeah.
It wasn't me. I would never have done that. That's like those programs that make you say it, and then you come from the South and you can't say any word the way they want you to say it. And they want you to be able to figure out how to turn these things into those words. So you can take a peek at these things and do as many as you want. We can go over them. These are real phrases from the prayer book. So, be'artzot hachayim. I don't know where that is. In the lands of life, of the living. Yeah. Shomrei Shabbat. That's a good one. We know that one.
We know that one.
Shomrei Shabbat are those who keep Shabbat. Adon Olam Asher Malach. Adon Olam is the master of the universe. I think we've already seen this one. Habocher Batorah uv Moshe Avdo uv Yisrael Amo uvinvieh ha'emet v'tzedek. That's from the Haftarah blessing. When we do the Haftarah, we are reading from the prophets. But this says Habocher Batorah, the one who chooses in the Torah and in Moses. So you notice there's a ba on this one and a ba on this one, and it's going to keep going. It's got lots of buzz because it all has to do with what it is that God chose, and God chose ba. Have to add it to everything. Uve malchut bet David, and in the kingdom of the house of David, ein lanu melech.
There isn't.
There is, we don't have a king.
There
Ein lanu melech,
is no
melech goel Moshiach. And without you, there is no king or redeemer. Bechol dor vador, in every generation
and generation.
So from generation to generation. I told you, I made magnets one year to give to the Jewish teachers that said, in the religious school teachers that said, Jewish teachers give door to door service, generation to generation service. Va'anachnu Yisrael amo. And we are Israel, his people. Some of these things are not testing what we're learning now. They're just showing off. L'chol habotchim b'shimcha be'emet. L'chol
To all
habotchim, of those who are
Bear-
trusting in b'shimcha, in your name, be'emet, in truth. Habotchim, for everyone who is trusting in your name with in truth. Malchuto, malchut kol alamim, umemshaltecha b'chol dor v'ador.
kingdom? No, his
So, yeah,
kingdom.
his kingdom,
His
Malchut.
kingdom.
malchut kol olamim, is a kingdom of all of eternities, or all of the worlds. Elecha, to you, kol rish'e haaretz, all of the evil ones of the land. I'm sending them to you. I don't want them anymore. V'shimcha
That
hagadol.
kind of throws me though when we're reading and then you have a good person that all your life you thought of as good, and then the sentence says raw.
Yeah, I know. I don't think that this one is one of those. We'll have to figure out where this one is. I don't know exactly where this, most of them I know. V'shimcha hagadol v'hakadosh aleinu. V'shimcha,
Your name
and your name, hagadol, and your great name, v'hakadosh, and
is
your
holy.
holy and great name, aleinu, upon us. They're very out of context, some of these. Chesed v'rachamim lifnei kavodo. Loving kindness,
Kindness.
rachamim, and mercies, lifnei, in front of kavodo, or before his kavod is honor or glory. Habocher ba'amo Yisrael be'ahava Shema. So this is right before Shema. Habocher, the one who chooses ba'amo Yisrael, in his people Israel, be'ahava, with love. And it's so cool because everything's being sung in a minor key until then, and then all of a sudden you get to this word and you go major, and then you say Shema, mi kamocha av harachamim. Who is like you? Kamo, kamocha is ka, or kamo is the word. Who is like you? Av harachamim, Father of the mercies. Al amcha Yisrael bishlomecha, about or on your people Israel with your peace. Bishlomech. Kol amcha beit Yisrael lefanecha, all of your people, house of Israel, before you. Am I going too fast? I'm trying to let you go. Shalom aleinu, peace upon us, va'al kol Yisrael, and on all of Israel. Aleinu, b'toratecha, al yedei Moshe, upon us with your Torah, b'toratecha, al yedei Moshe, on the hands of, or with the hands of Moshe, with Moses' hands.
Oh, I was going to ask you something about that, because last week you said Yalda would be a plural, that all body parts were a
Oh,
plural.
Yad is a pair, is the plural is going to be a paired body part. Yadayim is two
Yeah,
gods,
okay.
two hands. So,
But like not all body parts.
but not all
are
body parts. So I have one af, I have one peh,
Yeah,
but
and
I have
one rosh.
einayim, I have one rosh. So my
Yeah.
peh, my af, my rosh, those are all masculine. And
Okay.
they go more by what it looks like, but the paired body parts are feminine.
Oh, okay.
The paired body parts are feminine. So yad,
Okay.
yadayim.
I missed why it was paired.
And that's why, and you can hear it most of the time through the way it gets pluralized with the ayim ending. So yadayim, oznaim, einayim, motnaim, ketefayim, raglayim, birkaim, any of
She's
those things.
playing that game.
Yeah,
I can tell.
ketefayim, raglayim, birkaim, raglayim. Anyway, yes. Trying to think of how many body parts I could name that are paired. Shadayim, breasts, those are masculine, so I don't understand. Where are we? Mi hu zemelech hakavod Adonai tzvaot. Who is this, the king of the glory or honor? Hamelech hagadol v'hakadosh b'shamayim v'aretz, Hamelech, Hagadol, V'Hakadosh. That's a string of adjectives. The great, holy
Yes,
God,
great
King,
and holy
ruler, the great and holy ruler,
in the
Bashamayim,
names.
in the heavens and on the earth,
Oh, heavens
Yeah,
and earth.
Shamayim.
Okay.
Lifnei melech malchei hamlachim, before the King of the
Very
kings of
good.
the kings, Hakadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed is He. Anachnu, which we're trying to undo, is that turning into a masculine. Anachnu v'chol amcha beit Yisrael, l'chaim tovim u'lishalom. We, Anachnu v'chol amcha beit Yisrael, and all of your people,
Israel.
house of Israel, l'chaim tovim, for good life, u'lishalom, and for peace. Elim are gods. Nedar is a glorious word. Kadosh, Kodesh is holy. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, who is like you among the gods? Adonai. Mi kamocha, who is like you? Nedar ba'kodesh, glorious in holiness. And then I told you about the sharet for Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, peace be upon y'all. Malache hasharet, the serving or the ministering or the one who's useful. Malache, angels, sorry, the angels of the usefulness, let's say the angels of the serving. Malache elyon, so these are the angels of the highest, supreme. Mi melech malache hamlachim, and even though it sounds like malache, it's not. Mi melech, from the king of the kings of the kings. Hakadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed is He. Boachem l'shalom, y'all come l'shalom, for peace. Malache hashalom, angels of the peace. Malache elyon, angels of the highest. Mi melech malache hamlachim, from the King of the kings of the kings. Hakadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed is He. Barachuni l'shalom, bless y'all, bless me l'shalom, for peace. Malache hashalom, angels of the peace. Malache elyon, angels of the supreme, the highest. Mi melech malache hamlachim, from the King of the kings of the kings. Hakadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed is He. Tzedchem l'shalom, y'all leave l'shalom, for peace. Malache hashalom, angels of the peace. Malache elyon, angels of the highest, the supreme. Mi melech malache hamlachim, from the King of the kings of the kings. Hakadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed is He. But there's lots of other.
And what's the first word in that last section?
Tzedchem, this one. So it's,
Yeah.
let's say it like related to the word hamotzi, to bring out, to leave, to go out. Tzedchem, like Yitziat Mitzrayim, the leaving of Egypt. So
Bring them.
So it's not this one. In
to
this case, it's not
peace.
bringing. It's not bringing. In this case, it's just the going out. So when we're motzi,
Okay.
we're making it leave, in a sense. We're bringing out the bread from the earth. In this case, we're just sending them out. Tzedchem, y'all leave.
Okay.
Peace. All right, let's see if I can stop the share. And I think, unless anybody's got questions about this, I can stop the recording. Stop recording.
Mhm.
And I say, Tzedchem l'shalom, y'all should leave for peace.